Good morning and welcome to In Search of Prosperity Sisterhood. Thank you so much for being here. I've had some tech faux pas in the last few days, and um, usually our problems are pretty simple. Like, let's be honest. And don't let me fool you, I may look young, but I am an old soul, and so technology literally gives me the jitters sometimes, or the hives, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, we are here to create connection and confidence through conversation. And we are here live, as well as if you're joining us on a replay. So if you have any input or a note or something you don't want to forget to say in the chat, or the conversation afterwards, throw that in the chat. Because this is that live interactive conversation. I do have a couple people on the docket for interactive conversations through like this piece of the program, so to speak. But you, our members and participants and followers, you are guiding that conversation. So I want you to know that. So in light of the technology faux pas earlier this week, I sent out a Shaina's notes commentary because that's all I had. And as this group grows, I plan on having, of course, all these cool widgets and doodads and things like that. But you know what? Connection is where it's at. And we can do that through our words, through our thoughts, through our hearts, and through showing up. So here we are. This week, the theme is holidays without guilt. And the thing I want everyone to remember, because we're business owners in here, so we not only have the holidays going on, right? The extra days off, kids getting out of school, the idea that, well, I can't work my business unless I get a sale because I don't want to bother people because it's the holiday season. And then we also have that like inside of ourselves, if we want to go do the holiday things, we don't want to leave with guilt or regret or things like that. So there is that touch and go game of what can the holidays look like without losing our momentum in our business or our life, right? Like we don't have to completely submit to the chaos, but we can make space for the chaos. And yet we can also make space for keeping our momentum, keeping our goals in line, because we still have a month. We still have a month and a half of the year, right? And or what feels like 2023 until we actually figure out how to write 2024, right? Again, old soul, I'm literally writing a check in my mind. Who does that anymore? I write like 3 checks a year. Anyway, we have some time left in the year. We have some time left on our goals. And our goals don't end when the year ends because we still want that thing. And we have to remember that our daily activities can keep and maintain those goals for us. And they don't have to completely get left to the side. They can be something that sets our pipeline up for success come 2, 3, 6 weeks from now. In my history, I used to sell laundry contracts. Not underwear, but rugs and uniforms and towels and things like that. And this was the fun time of year because there's this rule, and I'll talk about this later, but because I have like this whole soapbox on it, but people need to see you to know, like, and trust you to then sign your contract. And why not have it be during the holidays when all that hustle and bustle is going on, but you touched them. You were there. You said hello. You said, hey, I know you're busy. Can we talk on January 10th? That wasn't so hard, right? And you touched them. and you kept them in your pipeline and you kept them warm. And you kept that momentum going for you and your business. So you had something to do in January, because otherwise January becomes a dry season. And it doesn't have to be that way. So this time of year is that cool opportunity to not have the full conversation, not sit down and do the sales presentation. Although some people will be like, oh yes, please, because January is crazy for me, right? Because there's always that too. And you never know who those people are or who those prospects are or who that potential employee is, right? Like, you could be, this time of year, you could be prospecting that new employee. Even though making a job change at this time might be chaos for you and something you would never do, it might be exactly what that other person is looking for. And the same thing with what you're offering. So keeping those people on your list, keeping in front of them. But this can be that low pressure time where you're just checking off that touch point with them and moving the sales process forward without that pressure, with that, hey, I know you're busy, but let's talk in 3 to 6 weeks, right? Like, when's a good day for you? Let's put it on the calendar now. So then both of you have something to do in January. But so going back to your goals and your momentum, it's those daily activities, it's those non-negotiables. It's you're still reading 30 minutes a day. You're still drinking your water. You're still making those 2 phone calls, those touch points. You're still having those conversations. You're still making those social media posts, whatever those things are that keep your goals rolling. Then when you take a minute and unpack your goals for the year and say, or the quarter or the month, and say, what could I do differently? What can change for next month? Do I need a little more time in this category? Those kinds of things you can do in a few weeks versus in a few weeks saying, well, I haven't done anything since November 15th. So let's start from 0. That's a lot less fun. So having that conversation with yourself now, saying, okay, if instead of 100%, which is what I was doing in November, in December, I'm going to do 70% so I can do the extra things with my friends and family and I'm going to do 70%. So what is that 70%? That is now 100% for this particular month. So then in January, you have something to go off of instead of 20, 30%. Okay. So again, you can shift and move your goals, but you still have them. It's still 2023. So now you've opened up some space in your goals and your commitments, right, to yourself and your business. You still have boundaries. Instead of throwing those daily activities, those sales conversations out the window because it's too busy, it's the holiday season, no one wants to be bothered, which isn't always true. It can be the fun time of sales and sales conversations. But then going into life and business and how that all does its thing, you're still needing to set boundaries. You still can't say yes to everything. And one excuse right now you can use that I gave permission with in the message I sent out to all of you, most of you, budget. A budget can be your excuse. Like, it's just not in the budget this month. I'm really committed to not doing business activities after 4 p.m. That can be a boundary. I'm just kind of going over some of my notes. Oh, and here's a little PSA that I wrote in my notes. Just because it's the holidays doesn't mean you don't have to protect your time or your money. And that includes you don't have to give discounts. You don't have to hand out samples as stocking stuffers. You don't have to do all the volunteering. You don't have to do all the donations. You don't have to be engulfed by that chaos. Now, if we go back to doing 70% of your 100% of your activities, that 30% in your availability is sometimes filled with chaos, but it's not 80% chaos. It's only 20 or 30% chaos, right? Or stuff you don't do any other month of the year. Because it's fun, because who doesn't love to wrap gifts for a fundraiser on a Saturday afternoon, right? When normally you wouldn't do that. Those types of things are still things that you can choose to say yes or no to. Being present in this season is a gift. And in my experience, because I've talked about this a lot, like I need something on my calendar. I need some sort of momentum creating thing. Because if I don't, then when I get into that dry season, right, of like, oh, I lost all my momentum, then that's where those negative thoughts come in. That's where I have to go back to what is the vision that I'm needing or wanting to create. So instead of allowing 100% of the chaos to take over, 70% of my life is still the same. And I take that 30% of chaos and just like, whatever. That's the way that weekend went. That's the way that afternoon went. That's whatever. One goal I have for next year is the month of November to take that off, in a way, off. Okay. There's a garden club nearby that makes wreaths, and I'm sure there's one near you if this inspires you. But I had a blast one afternoon this November, just learning their ways of their world, how they do things, how they take the orders, and then creation, which was so fun. But I chose a boundary saying, I really wish I could drop everything and do this every afternoon this entire month. But I can't. But next year, it's my goal. Like, not the whole, but taking that 70% and doing it in November too, and having that time to do what I want to do and have fun with that. So maybe it's 2 or 3 days a week that I send my little to her grandparents to cause chaos in their world, and then I get to go have fun as well. It's just different. And when you can decide versus throw it all to the wind, that's where it saves you from that guilt of looking up in January and saying, I should have done something in December. So this is my call to you, saying you can still do things for your business in December. It can be done. And you can also do things for yourself in December, because Christmas comes every single year, and whatever holiday you celebrate comes every single year. It's on the calendar. And we talk about like putting things on your calendar, laying out your calendar, looking at your calendar, using your calendar as an excuse, right? Let me put that on my calendar or under my pillow to see if it fits on my calendar, right? Like that opportunity that you have to say, this is still my calendar. And yes, Christmas is on the calendar, So there's more little asterisks and signs and highlights and circles and things like that. But those daily non-negotiables and those sales conversations can still be had. Now, there are people that are not in that brain space that have let the chaos take over and they're not ready. So that's your opportunity to say, would it make sense if we talked on January 10th? And they're like, oh, thank God you don't want to talk now, right? Then there's the other people who are like, what do you got? I'm here. Like, I'm ready for you. And that's what saves you from that guilt. I also want to say, you're going to come out of this alive. Like, no matter what, if you let the chaos take over, there's just a longer recovery period. It's never the end of the world. It's never like, I let that last month slide and now my whole year is ruined. Like, I know those people, that mindset exists. And I just don't want anyone in this community to feel that way, to feel like they need to start over, to feel like that they aren't revivable from a holiday season where the chaos took over. Okay. It all takes practice. It all takes setting those boundaries, reiterating those boundaries, going back to those boundaries. It takes that commitment to yourself and those boundaries and that practice, because it doesn't happen the first time you set that boundary. I'm here to attest to that. But the more you set, the more you keep that foothold in, the easier it is, the lighter that door becomes. And you will come out of this alive, no matter what. So maybe a challenge to you today would be saying, hey, 1 to 10, 0 to 100%, how much have I let the chaos come in? And I used 70-30, because I really feel like that's kind of my rule on holiday chaos. It could be 1 to 7 days a week, right? Yeah, I like numbers. So like, on your scale, how much would you like chaos to be a part of that this month? Because let's be honest, it's going to be there. If you celebrate any holiday in December, not just Christmas, what could be your number in a perfect world, and what is it? And like, maybe closing that gap between the two, because you don't want to be a Scrooge, and you also don't want to be wondering what your month is going to look like in January. So December doesn't have to be a 0. It really doesn't. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun in December. So that's what I have for you this morning. Thank you. We're going to go into our discussion now with our live attendees, and it's going to be quite the conversation, I think. I have a quote here. Someone, let's see, chat. Britta says, being present in this season is a gift. So true. Yes, it really is. Like, we need us to be here where our feet are. So that's my love to you guys, ladies. Let's go out and create a little less chaos and a little more running towards what we are working for to finish out this year and start the new year, because those two are one and the same. Like I said, you're going to be writing 2023. If you're an old soul like me, writing checks in my head, like, who does that? I don't know. Anyway, you're going to be writing 2023 for a while going into 2024. So why can't your goals slide into there? Yet, why not make it so it's not a complete and total loss in December, because January follows that. And you can do it. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this conversation. We're going to jump into our live conversation, and we're going to make 2023 finish strong. Thank you. See you soon.